Hey guys, and welcome to the next installment of Jan's opening clinic, where without further ado we continue trying to solve Chess24 premium members' opening problems, or at least answering their questions. Let's not get too ambitious. And next in line is bettiebebop. She or he, you never know, is saying, "Dear Jan, thanks for all the good work. It's much appreciated. Thank you so much. I have a quick question about the Colle. In your video series on Queen's Pawn openings, you recommend meeting d4, knight f6, knight f3, d5, e3 with c5. Noting that after d takes c5, black will regain his pawn. However, after a long line, we'll put it on the board in a second, we get a position that's similar to a Noteboom variation with reversed colors. First of all, that's not a bad thing, is it? And secondly, and one from which white seems to score pretty well. I haven't checked that, but I have checked the engine, which likes black. Anyway, do you have any suggestions on how to approach this position with black? It would appear that it's difficult to avoid once you've played 3c5. Cheers, bettiebebop. So let us put it on the chessboard. 3c5, which of course is not for us. You can go e6, you can go bishop f5, you can do what you like, but I do consider this the most principled move. D takes c5, which most e3 players won't play. They would play like c3 or knight b2 or b3 or a move like that. Anyway, d takes c5, e6, b4, a5, c3, takes, b6. This sequence is indeed quite forcing. And we get this very weird structure where white has all these pawns in the center. No, black has all these pawns in the center, and white has the two passed pawns on the queen side, which at first sight looks very scary. I've been, nowadays slightly less so, but I've been afraid of the Noteboom for a while myself. It's different than the Noteboom though. In the Noteboom, black has a bishop somewhere here, which, if the position opens, can become very strong, but doesn't contribute to the fight for the center, while here, black, for example, has no trouble controlling the e5 square. So I would say this is even a good version of the Noteboom. As for what to do, there's two different approaches. You can play the quote-unquote normal move, bishop to d6, let's say bishop to b2, and some move like castles, followed by c4, queen goes to b8, and with very tricky play. But what I really want to do, and this is a bit out of character for me, but seems to work nicely here, is play g5. And white has these two passed pawns. We might as well play all over the rest of the board. And g5 seems to work fine here. Knight takes g5 is no good because of rook to g8, and the position opens very much in black's favor. Once this rook gets here, white won't be able to defend. So white has to do something. I guess bishop b2 is once again the most natural. When we should take the time to cover the e5 square, go bishop d6. And the plan is to just, push the pawn. White, has a variety, is that a word? Variety of options here. Let's say castles. We would go g4, of course. Knight fd2, then queen c7. This is already very, very dangerous for the white player because he can't really fight back in the center either. And the pawns are not queening yet. Of course, you don't have to castle. You can play whatever, h3. Black goes rook g8. Once again, attempting caveman antics here. But I like black's position. There's also c4, knight c5, knight d3 check ideas. I do think that this position is very nice for black. I haven't checked the score, but the computer is on my side, and with such a position out of the opening for black, the amount of risk white is taking, I think it's too much. White shouldn't go here. So I hope you're on board with this position and the g5 move. If not, bettiebebop, you're right, this position is tough to avoid after playing c5. Then you should play another move, like bishop f5 is fine, nothing wrong with bishop f5. And hope that helped. What is the next question? Are there more questions? ChessFan123 is saying, "Dear Jan, my repertoire as black is based on the Nimzo Indian, Queen's Indian defense. Sorry to hear that. For this reason, I answer 1 d4, knight f6, 2 knight f3 by 2 e6. What do you recommend me to play against the Torre attack, 3 bishop g5 then? Thank you for your great work. The chess community loves it. Thanks, ChessFan123. Even though I think the chess community, they turned on me somewhere around 2016 it was. I still remember that day. It was a very sad day. So the Torre. I normally avoid it because my repertoire is based on the Nimzo, Indian and the Queen's Gambit. So I can play d5 here, which helps a lot because you don't really have to deal with all these bishop f4, bishop g5 systems. If I was forced to deal with this, the thing is, don't quote me on the move order, but I think this move order is fine. c5, e3, h6, bishop h4. Most players that want to play Queen's Indian Nimzo setups, they go b6 here, followed by bishop b7, which gives white some chances for an opening advantage. And I would advise, once again, this is just my advice, I'm aware you probably won't be thrilled, but bear with me, to give up all your principles here and play d5, even here, for once in your life. Now, most of your opponents will choose this setup with, let's say, c3, and you put the knight on d7. This is the key to sort of break this pin. The knight doesn't go to c6, but instead it helps its colleague on f6. And the plan is to put the bishop here, then go b6, bishop b7, queen to c7, jump with the knight to e4. Of course, we castle somewhere along the way. And I think this plan works reasonably well. Let's say knight d2, knight b2, bishop d6, bishop d3, castles, castles, b6. If black is given time to complete the setup I talked about, he's probably slightly better because his bishop looks like an idiot. So white will typically try to play e4 here or on the next move. And we're in time to meet e4. Just go cd. If knight d4, there's knight c5. So cd, de, knight e4, bishop e7. White doesn't have all that much to show for his isolated pawn. This is a fairly comfortable position for black. Of course, instead of e4, they can play other moves, like whatever, queen e2 or rook e1. I think queen e2 is common, bishop b7, and now e4. The point being that now c takes d4 runs into e5. So don't blunder that. But if you don't, you just take here. Let's say knight takes e4, bishop to e7. I do not see any particular problems for black either. So that would be the system that I would go for. If you prefer a system with b6, I understand, but I can't really endorse those. I like, fighting for the center. Thanks for the question, chess fan 123. While we wait for an hour, while I figure out how to scroll up. That's a useful skill to have in today's world, scrolling up and down. Here we are. Let's look at the next question by Jose Bon. He's saying, "Dear Jan, thank you for your brilliant video series. You're being way too kind, Jose, thank you. I have a question about the bishop's gambit, as you do. In the line, e4, e5, f4, e takes f4. I think that's where all theory should stop. e4, e5, f4 question mark, e takes f4, minus 0.53. I think we should stop there. Anyway, 3 bishop c4, knight to f6, knight c3, c6, bishop b3, d5, e d c d, d4, bishop d6, and so on and so forth. It seems that L11, hg5, hg5, and knight takes f4 can be dangerous for black. Could you show some other lines for black? Thank you in advance for your answer." I can, even though, as mentioned, I don't think I should, because you're already better so early on. So e4, e5, f4, e takes f4. At this point, I sort of agree that bishop c4 is a trickier move than knight f3. But yeah, bishop c4. At this point, I'll give 2 options, one of which all credit goes to my friend Ivan Salgado. For all of you that still have King's Gambit questions after all these years, I not only don't pluck stuff, but let me give him a little shout out, because this has been very useful for me. You see, I have it on my Kindle. Ivan's book on the end of the King's Gambit. He's a good theoretician and he has a powerful engine, so he just sat down and, refuted all the King's Gambit lines and wrote a little book about it. He's saying it's a guide for beginners and intermediate players, but I think it's pretty much a guide for grandmasters as well. Because, yeah, it's a pretty conclusive King's Gambit refutation. And I don't know, Doesn't cost much, like €3.50 or something. Not sure. Don't quote me on the price. Anyway, that was a useful book for me. I don't want to give all his lines here, but he's saying bishop to c4, knight c6 is a very strong move. One of the points is that after knight f3, g5 works beautifully. Let's say castles, whatever. Bishop g7. I can't even remember his lines. Bishop g7. Was it bishop g7? I guess d4 h6, something like this. Black. It's just a pawn up with a good position. While after d4 here, knight to f6 was a strong move. Knight c3, bishop b4. I do remember this line. This. And black is better as well. So knight c6 is a good move. For more details, you can check out Ivan's book. In your line, knight f6, knight to c3, c6, bishop b3, d5, ed. I think knight takes d5 is a fairly simple solution, which... Who was it? Vichy recently played this? Someone recently played this. I believe it was Anand. When... I can't say anything for white. Or, well, the best white seems to have is to go knight to f3. Yeah, bishop e6 is alright, but you can also just take... after b takes c, bishop d6. You know, pawn up. Not much to worry about either. So I think knight takes d5 works, and knight to c6 is probably the mathematically most nasty move, if that makes sense. I hope that helped. FLOLJ is saying, how can I avoid French structures? Playing 1 c5 and 2 e6 against e4. I don't know, how do you get French structures? So let's get a board to begin with. e4, c5. Our goal is to avoid French structures, by which I guess you mean, let's say, something like this, right? We don't want this. So don't go there. If white plays c3, knight f6 is an excellent move. White goes e5, you go knight d5, d4 you take. Here you go d6. Man, you get a very, I don't know what structure this is, but it's not French. And it's also fine for black, as far as I know. So that's one line. The others, I don't know. Wouldn't know how you get French structures. Depends on your repertoire here. If you want to go knight c6 or a6 or knight f6, what your line is. But in general, I don't think you have to be overly concerned to get French structures from this position. Typically, black does not go d5 and white does not answer it with e5. So I don't think that's much of an issue. The only way to get these structures would be c3 that I can think of. Here knight f6 is perfectly fine. There's also this line, which I'm not very familiar with. Looks a bit weird for both sides. So I'd go knight f6. Sorry if I didn't really answer your question, but that's the way I understood it. strandtomt is saying, hi Jan, would you rather play black against the King's Gambit? More King's Gambit questions, beautiful. Or white in a normal opening? Do you think the chances for equalizing with white in the King's Gambit are worse than with black, e.g. in the Grunfeld or the Berlin? Yeah, I'd take black against the King's Gambit instantly. I don't think it's all that close. conteyellow is saying, I'm making a lot of friends in the King's Gambit community. But no, that's what I believe. conteyellow is saying, hi Jan, and thanks for another opening clinic. My question is, how can black unbalance the game when white adopts an English-type developing scheme? Not sure what we're talking about yet. I'll try to be more specific. I recently started to enjoy playing Benoni positions. That's odd. Challenging the center with c5 when white moved d4. Yet I find it very hard to get some kind of tactical play when white doesn't push at all d4, d5. And my results in these positions are quite poor. I give the following line as an example. Knight f3, knight f6, c4, g6, g3, bishop g7, bishop g2, castles, c5, knight c3, d6. And independently by white next move, d3, d4. I find it difficult for black to create tension or to elaborate a meaningful plan. Should I deviate from this line b4? What should I be aiming at in this kind of positions? I'm mildly confused, but we'll try to figure it out. In general, there is no good answer to your question. White is within his rights to play the English setups and not push the pawn to d5. Actually, that's, how I've been hanging around for a while. Like, I will never bite and never put my pawn there. It's too risky. All the space that you gotta maintain. So, sorry, how was a sample line you gave? Something along those lines. Bishop g2, c5, castles. And yeah, here d6 seems to be giving up a bit much. I think if you want to get this position, you might want to go knight c6 at least when, well, we've covered this in many an opening clinic after d4, c d4, knight d4. Black has some options. Now you can go d6, gambitize this pawn if you really want to. It's not a great gambit, but you can. Well, I'm normally advocating the plan of queen a5, intending to play queen to h5 and then, something. There's also other options that are less kinky though, like knight takes d4 and then d6. So that's what I would do. Other than that, if you're okay playing the Sicilian, you can also start with something like this. And now, I don't know, delay knight f6 a little. Get this type of setup where you might have a little more options. Like here you can play e6, knight g7, or d6 followed by e5, or e5 immediately, or knight h6, or all kinds of things. So those are the things. Of course, they come with a price tag. You do allow e3 in this position, and you do allow 2 e4, and so on and so forth. But that might be a way for you to spice up things a little bit. Then again, I'm not really on your side here. I've been trying to make the game dull for you thrill seekers that want to play the Benoni, or the King's Indian, or my chess career, or the Banco Gambit, even worse. So let us bore you for some more years. Cameron de la Isla is saying, "Hi Jan, thanks for your high-level content." Thank you so much. My question: I noticed lots of strong grandmasters, Carlsen, Kramnik, Mamedov, started playing knight f3, knight f6, g3, g6, b3 lately, with very good results. Against an early d5, white will play c4, reaching a comfortable anti-Grunfeld, where he's probably a little better. I disagree with that, but we'll get to that in a second. Against the King's Indian approach, he plays d4 and takes on e5. With this particular move order, pushing e5 seems to be no picnic for black. For example, bishop g7, bishop b2, castles, bishop g2, d6, d4, knight b7, castle e5. We'll put it on the board in a minute. Knight g4, and so on and so forth. White is a nice structure, yep. And the immediate de, knight ft7, knight c3 scores highly for white. Yeah, that looks good. So what is black's best setup? Thank you very much. This is territory that I'm familiar with because I'm trying to bore the likes of conteyellow. So I'm always looking for lines like this. And I believe original poster has a point. However, there's one problem with this move order. If you go b3, the problem is that black can go d5 right here. It would be important to go here and not start with bishop g7 followed by d5, because now white is not in time. If you go c4 now, black goes d4, and black is very comfortable. b3 doesn't fit in all that well here. Funny that I just said I'm trying to avoid Benoni structures and so on at all costs, but with black, if you give me that position, I'll go for it in an instant. Because objectively, yeah, black's probably slightly better here. Or, well, let's say equal, whatever. And so with black, yeah, you gotta take what is given to you. So this, I think, is fine. And if you start with bishop b2, once again, it's very important not to go bishop g7, because then white will go c4, and we get what you've referenced. But instead, black starts with c5, and this is annoying. Once again, c4, d4, and I don't see any particularly promising way for white to play here. It might exist, but I don't think it does. I think black's just fine. Bishop g7. So that's a problem with this move order, and the reason why the likes of Kramnik have started experimenting with stuff like this, which Kramnik played against Grishuk, He's opting for the same setups that you mentioned with bishop b2, g3, bishop g2. But not allowing this d5, c5 business. As for everything else you said, I fully agree. White, yeah, those things are pleasant. Like g3, g6, b3, bishop g7, whatever, bishop b2, castles, bishop g2, d6, d4. Here in this position, I guess c5 is a little more critical than the lines you mentioned. And after c4, there is some body of theory around knight e4, stuff like castles, knight c6. These things aren't so easy. I think e3 is what white is supposed to do. This is, yeah, still sort of tricky territory. Well, yeah, all these e5 positions, well, it's just better as far as I can tell. So, yeah, I agree on that front, but the problem with the move order, in my very, very humble opinion, is that black can go d5, bishop b2, c5, and it is completely fine. So I hope that answers your question, Mr. Camarón de la Isla. Our old friend and fellow Mora enthusiast RiCaLa is saying, "Hi Jan, here's a terrible line I faced as black playing the Caro-Kann that I've run into many times on Blitz and once over the board. In the old days, Blitz used to be played over the board too. Now, I'm a much older man than you, RiCaLa, so you probably won't recall these times. But I used to go to the chess club in the early 90s and play. We had these old-fashioned clocks where you had to literally push a button, then the opponent's clock would start running. Those were the days. Anyway, 1 e4, c6, d4, d5, knight c3, de, knight e4, bishop f5, bishop d3, queen takes d4. The computer gives me something like -006 after knight 3, queen d8, which you know is fine and all for equalizing quickly with black, which was going to be the speech I would normally give here, but doesn't have that haha you blundered a pawn oomph that I think my opponent deserves for his unintentional sacrifice. I hear you. Is there a game plan here more stimulating than just hoping that white's huge lead in development dies out over the next 30 moves so that I can slowly start to make use of my extra pawn? I got you, RiCaLa. Let's figure this out if I manage to put the position on the board. So e4, c6, d4, d5, knight c3, de, knight e5, knight e4, bishop f5, bishop d3, obviously a mistake. Knight g3 is the way to go. Queen d4, knight f3, queen back to d8. So far, so correct. And now white already has a decision to make. Probably since he just blundered a pawn, he does not want to play the endgame. After castles, you would take and whatnot, and pawn up in the endgame. How bad can it be? So white players will normally play the move queen e2 here. And this is a position where you can re-establish oomph credibility. Because okay, you could play something dull like bishop takes e4, but what I want you to do is play the move knight to f6. You play with their feelings a little bit. You give them hope that you blundered a piece. But you didn't. Knight takes f6, g takes f6, bishop f5. This will happen. And now you triumphantly play queen a5 check. And you say, haha, you thought I blundered a piece. I believe that will get the psychological initiative back on your side. And black is also better objectively, because we're still a pawn up. So, there you go. I believe you will get this position. 90% of the time, your opponent blunders this pawn with bishop d3. And they will be very, very upset when they see queen a5 check. Since I blundered a pawn like 3 moves earlier, they won't see this double attack coming in. That's the best I got. But it's good enough. You should be grateful for this free pawn. NicolDiGirolamo is saying, Ciao Jan. I'm possibly the biggest fan of your clinics. They're quite awesome. Thank you so much, Nicole. My question is about the 3c5 Caro Advance. I'm studying a new line where I was recently surprised in a tournament game. 4 dc5, knight c6, a3. We'll put it on the board in a second, I guess. Yeah, this line is too long, but I did type it into my little tool here. In the OTB game, I suffered a long-lasting pressure on my king side. Sorry, man. With this gambit, I hope to achieve an active position. What do you think about that? Is it a valid idea to equalize? Or is black's position shady? Are there annoying minor lines along the way? Okay, let's start marching down the way. Thank you very much for your invaluable help and quite astonishing patience. Now you're overdoing it. Then again, flattery works, so thank you, but patience, not one of my virtues normally. All right, e4, c6. I forgot already. All right, d4, d5. e5, c5. d takes c5. First of all, but this is, slightly off topic. Most strong players seem to have come to the conclusion by now that e6 is a stronger move than knight to c6. One reason for that, at least that's what Peter Svidler, who knows everything about everything, told me live on air, so it's not a secret, during our commentary, is that white can go f4 here, which surprisingly seems to be an annoying move for black to face. So you would have to expand your homework towards f4 as well if you want to make knight to c6 work. Anyway, a3, I've recently seen someone play this line. Where was it? Yeah, I've seen, it was in the German Cup where bishop b2 and rook a2 was played. And the computer says king f8 is fine. I think in that game they played bishop f6, was Maxime Lagarde against Zelcic, I believe. Sorry if I got it wrong. I think that was it. But your line is more critical indeed. This bishop b5 check, bishop d7, queen d5. Now I didn't spend that much time checking. You could also go for an endgame here, but it's an endgame pawn downside in a sense, not that appealing. Well, this line I've never seen before in my life, but in general, if you do your own homework here, you'll always be fine, because it's very hard to believe that anybody, frankly, will have analyzed this as deeply as you. So sometimes the objective evaluation even doesn't matter so much if you can just follow your own private little theory while your opponent can't. Because to find your way here, after rook d1, let's say queen e8 is what he gave, to find this queen e2, knight e4, queen e3 is nothing that people would come up with easily, right? As for the position, my computer gives white a little edge, but nothing that can't be managed where I was 0-30. So I believe, you can absolutely, comfortably play this line, should it ever come up. And good job doing your own research. I think that's what matters the most. As for knight c6, I've mentioned my concerns. This f4 seems to be an issue. So most guys have switched back to e6. But not a big connoisseur, I have to admit. Anyway, keep up the good work, NicolDiGirolamo. Zeveraar is saying, my question is related to a specific line in the Queen's Indian, Petrosian variation. d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, b6. a3, bishop b7, knight c3, d5, bishop g5, bishop e7, 7, queen a4 check. I face this line, I struggle reading, 3 times recently and suffer badly. Wow, I haven't seen this line around for pretty much since 1994. In 2 of the games I followed Korchnai's idea, which he demonstrated in a very famous game against Karpov. Dortmund 1994. c6, bishop f6, bishop f6, cd, ed, g3, castles, bishop g2, knight d7, castles, bishop e7, rook ft1, f5. Korchnai's solution seems to be very interesting. Leads to a very interesting and unbalanced position. But in practice, I found it quite hard to handle. The weakness of the king's position and the weakening of some key squares came back to haunt me. Do you have a more reliable antidote in store? Thanks in advance. Not sure, but let's look. d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight to f3. What was the line? I can't remember anything ever. It's quite astonishing, really. b6, a3, bishop b7, knight c3, d5, and bishop g5, this stuff. Bishop e7, queen a4 check. Some Dreyev line? Does Dreyev play this? I think what the movie mentions c6 is fine. I would be tempted, once again, reading out computer lines as usual, but to ask white what his point is after knight b7, which no one ever plays, but in a way it's the most ambitious move. Because it's really just continuing development and asking white to prove what he had in mind with queen a4 check. The only logical move, as far as I can tell, is knight to e5. And here, after c5, I can't really find anything too scary for black. So I think the best play, according to Compy, is something like cd, knight d5, knight d5. Now, unfortunately, we have to go ed, because bishop d5, e4 loses. So ed, e3. More trickery, bishop g5, I guess. Then knight takes d7 is fine for white. So we have to go a6, takes. And this is, yeah, pretty much forced. We get this endgame, which seems fairly 0-0-ish. At first it looks a little scary to have these weaknesses, but white doesn't really have the pieces to use those squares. And black, I don't know, can put a rook on b8, go a5, go f5 if he needs to clamp down. And it does seem like it's a very playable position. I couldn't find anything else. So that's one option. As for your line, I think you're right in mentioning that what Korchnoi did is interesting. How does it go? Knight d7, bishop e7. Sorry, not e4. But rook ft1, f5, bishop d6 and whatnot. It's an unclear position. Well, yeah, I don't think black is worse, but I understand. I have a built-in dislike for the move f5 normally. Other than that, I can't really claim a lot of expertise here. The plan that looks most normal to me would be something like rook e8, followed by knight to a6, and then knight to c7, and then do nothing. Something like this, right? g6. Whatever, we keep doing nothing and hope that our two bishops one day will be important. But I understand it's not the most ambitious of plans either. But I have a hard time believing that black could be in trouble here, and it's more like moving pieces around, whoever. It's one of these, the better player wins positions. While the other one, this knight bd7, is more of an attempt to, kill the game. So those are my thoughts, but I also think you're right that the line you gave is generally fine for black. Best of luck facing that line in the future. As I said, I haven't seen anybody play it forever, so I'm very surprised to get it so. DonkeyKong is saying, "Hi Jan, thanks for all your amazing work for Chess24. Thank you, DonkeyKong. Can you recommend a setup for white against the Stonewall Dutch? I face it from time to time in Blitz. Ooh, poor you. In the move orders, d4, f5, c4, e6, or d4, e6, c4, f5, followed by black c6 and d5. I used to play a g3 bishop g2 setup for a while, but with little success. Now I normally play a dull counter Stonewall with e3 and f4 with better results. Nevertheless, I'm looking for a more exciting alternative against the Stonewall. Is there one you can recommend?" And DonkeyKong already knows what I'm going to tell him, so he tells me starting with knight f3 or c4 is not really an alternative because 1d4 suits me as my main opening move, and I won't change it because of a quite rare Dutch line. Fair enough. That's what I do normally. If I know or anticipate my opponent to play the Dutch, I will normally go one knight to f3 because there it's very hard to get the Stonewall. Because, yeah, I'm not committed to d4, so I can challenge the Stonewall with a quick d3, e4 later. Anyway, that's off the table, so I don't know, I think the most challenging is to play with g3. Let's say knight f6, bishop g2. They either go d5 or c6 here, but I want to do the same against both, more or less. d5, I want to go queen c2. They typically go c6 here. And I want to play with knight to h3, which I think is a good system. And most people think it's a good system, so for a while all the Stonewall experts, they started playing with c6 first, and then after knight f3 they would go d5. And while their point was after knight h3 they would go d6 and say, haha, your knight is on the rim and dim. But I don't really see what the point is if I go queen to c2 first. If they go d5, we go back to h3. If they go d6, we go knight to f3 and are better. And if they go bishop to e7, then the bishop is committed to e7. Well, in the Stonewall, they really want it on d6. They want d5, bishop d6. So here white just goes knight to f3 and is enjoying a great version of the Stonewall. Therefore, one would normally get the same position, d5. Here we go knight h3. The big point is that after bishop d6, which is still the main move, we can challenge that guy with bishop f4. Then recapture here with the knight. Main line is, I guess, something like this, bishop here. No, black. There's other moves, but typically they want to avoid the exchange now. Go bishop e7, we develop. h6, trying to shut this knight off. And stuff like this. White is a little better. That's what I would do. It's not winning, I have to admit. But I think white is a little better. That's sometimes all we can ask for. The Stonewall is not as bad as the other Duchess. Because at least, you know, it's a wall. So, I hope you like that system, DonkeyKong. And yeah, don't play this counter Stonewall. That sounds a little meh. What's next? Oh, Grandmaster Passion. He's saying, hi Jan, how do I improve on the following game as black? Is the King's Indian simply not sufficient for equality? In order to prove the King's Indian is not sufficient for equality, Passion chose the game. Zeveraar against Aryan Chopra. Not some Kramnik-Kasparov game or something like that, but Zeveraar against Aryan Chopra is the end of the King's Indian. And with zero disrespect meant to Mr. Zeveraar or Mr. Chopra, who are both excellent players. I'm not quite sure what Passion wants me to tell him here. I don't think anybody ever claimed the King's Indian was a way to achieve equality. It's a way to achieve a double-edged game, no? Anyway, he's asking for an improvement in that game. So, I did what? Ooh, this is not what happened in that game. F3 is what happened. I did the unbelievable. I spent many hours of painstaking research and came up with an improvement. I'm just kidding. You switch on the engine and do what the engine says. No, h5 is what happened, right? h5, bishop e2, h4, knight f1, e6, bishop g5, h3, knight e3. I'm gonna assume all these moves are completely forced. f4, and here comes your big improvement. You move the knight away. It's under attack. Don't let it hang out there to try. Put it to d7. It's the only square it has available. And black is okay. The line continues a bit. Queen d3, knight b6, d6, knight a4, ef7, king f7, knight d5. Oops, sorry, knight d5. The other knight was not allowed to go there. Knight b2, queen g3, rook h8. You know, stuff like that. And it's equal after 15 more computer moves. So there you go. I'm not sure if you're trying to make a broader point, but the question wasn't all that specific, was it? There were no notes. But that's the improvement over that game. If you're asking me if I think the King's Indian equalizes, no, I don't. But I still have a bad score against it because, you know, those are tricky positions. They're tough to handle. I prefer it when my opponents play for equality. aisthesis is saying, hi Jan, is there anything I can do? After d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, e6. I'm guessing he means c4, e6, knight c3, c6. If I don't want to go for the Marshall Gambit or the Noteboom. My reason to go for the move order as white is that in case of 3 knight f6, I want to play the Queen's Gambit decline with knight c3 and bishop g5, avoiding all the Vienna and Rogozin intricacies. However, the triangle gives me some problems, so do I have to learn the Marshall Gambit, or might something like 4 queen b3 be playable? Thanks in advance. the best solution would be to play the Marshall Gambit. I can tell you from experience, as a regular triangle player, that normally you hold your breath, and when you're playing this, you hope that white is not ready for the complications that arise after 4e4, because objectively, that is very much the critical test. However, if you don't want to allow it, you can still bluff it, and once you reach this position, say, no, I'm not going to give you that pawn, which is the critical question, but I'm just going to go knight c3. It's fine for white. White is not worse. Or, yeah, maybe arguably even slightly better. This type of stuff, knight to f3, is very playable if, yeah, you only want to bluff the Marshall Gambit. Other than that, you asked, you don't want the Noteboom either, which is another system where I don't think black equalizes, but it leads to an unbalanced structure. So e3 would be a move, you know, defending the pawn and all that good stuff. But I'm guessing you don't like that because, yeah, you have to deal with some Stonewallish, or maybe knight f6 takes you out of your repertoire. But yeah, if we rule out knight f3, e3, and e4 here, you're sort of running out of options. Queen b3 is nonsense. Don't do that. Like after queen b3, you're worse already with white dc, queen c4, b5. So that's, yeah, the combination of the knight on c3 and bring the queen out quickly is really bad. If you want to do that, but I understand you don't, for repertoire reasons, stuff like this is playable. Knight f3, c6, and now queen c2 or queen b3, here it's okay. But with the knight on c3, it's just not playable. So advice number one would be, stop trying to avoid stuff, just play it if it's good for white. Marshall Gambit or the Noteboom is not really systems you would have to avoid. And then yeah, e3 would be the next on my list of things to do. Or yeah, e4, you can still chicken out by going bishop b4, knight c3, which is a system that's playable. You don't need much theory. And get a game out of it. That's all I can tell you. Best of luck, but yeah, don't go to extremes here by being worse with white after 4 moves against the triangle by playing queen b3. CD is also a bit sad. CD, ED, bishop f4, bishop d6, and black. Pretty much a tempo up on normal theoretical lines. So, yeah, sorry man. The best moves, the stuff towards the center, are often the best moves. Let's do one more. I didn't take the time how many we've done, but I feel like, yeah. One more should be, maybe 2 more. 2 more should be alright for this installment. Spilzzz is asking, hey Jan, thanks for all of the great shows. Thank you, Spilzzz. After the moves, knight f3, d5, g3, c5, bishop g2, knight f6, castles, knight c6, d4, we're in a reverse Grunfeld, and black presumably has many ways to play here. Does he? Question, how would you continue as black, and how would you evaluate the resulting position? Thanks much, and cheers. And yeah, sometimes I try to make that stuff work, but I never really get there. So I probably would not reach this position, but to answer the question, how would I continue? Since I can't really make these lines work, I've sometimes tried. Here, c4, and now either rook b8 or bishop to e6. But they don't really seem to equalize whenever I check. I would not go for them, and instead play the very exciting move, e6 here. And white would normally play c4, obviously not forced. But that's what they would normally do. And I would go d takes c4. And we're transposing to a line of the Catalan. Well, white has a bunch of alternatives, but it has a decent theoretical standing currently. After dc, queen d1, rook d1, bishop c5, knight bd2, c3. Black has been holding this endgame fairly comfortably recently. And the other lines, where knight e5, bishop d7, are also in decent health, theoretically, as far as I know. Knight a3 also moves. So yeah, there's some theory attached to this. It wouldn't be my number one choice against the Catalan. But since you gave me this position and asked what I would do, it would be e6. It's not sexy, but yeah, I just can't really make these things work. Which is, yeah, not that surprising, I guess, because their Grunfeld's a tempo down. You can try to go rook b8 or bishop e6 here. Well, I'm not convinced. So, sorry, Spilzzz. Elias03 Hulebergs Idali is saying, "Hi Jan, tell me your thoughts on this line for black. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a6, bishop a4, d6, c3, bishop d7, d4, g6, castles, bishop g7, bishop g5, f6, bishop e3, knight h6. Do you like this opening or not? And I wonder also if you have analyzed this and maybe share some lines." Well, I've certainly never looked at this before your question. I've looked at this for a moment now. But no, I've never been a fan. Not so much of the position you're giving, which I just saw for the first time in my life, but of this a6, d6. It's not necessarily bad. Like, Mehmet Yarov is playing this quite regularly these days, and some other strong players also play it as a surprise weapon, including Carlsen, and I guess who else plays recently? Kayakin, or I can't remember. Maybe Aronian. So it's clearly playable. It's not my cup of tea. I like, knight f6, bishop e7, stuff like that. But yeah, as for the line, bishop g5 is not the main move. I'd be more concerned about just standard Spanish stuff here, like rook e1, they do that? Or what do they do here? I don't know. Maybe they start with h3, knight f6, rook e1, castles, knight bd2, and we get these typical positions which you often get out of 6 d3 Spanish, where white later pushes d4. But he's gone d4 in one go, so I would guess white is a little more comfortable here. With, all the standard plans. Bishop c2, knight f1, knight g3, all that good stuff. So that would be higher on my list of concerns than bishop g5. But you asked about bishop g5, so let's get here. f6, bishop e3, knight h6, looks logical. And yeah, I looked at this a bit. I was surprised. The main move seems to be d takes e, and now they all go d takes e or knight e5. I don't really understand why not f takes e. Because this looks like a healthier structure somehow, no? If, I don't know, white goes h3, castles. I don't think black's position is so terrible. Like, the computer wanted something weird. Like check and c4, but that looked weird. So, yeah, I don't mind this so much after DE. I would try to go FE. I'm not sure what the argument against it is. Maybe they think bishop g5 is great. But just queen c8, and I'm not quite sure what white has achieved here. So, yeah, I'm not a fan of the a6, d6 system. But, yeah, this bishop g5, f6, bishop h3. Not sure why this is so terrifying. Of course, d5 is not forced, and white could just play whatever move and argue he's still a bit better, which might be hard to argue against, but then at least black gets a sort of harmonious setup, I guess, where you can either opt for f5 or just stay passive, quote-unquote, solid with knight f7 first. So yeah, not a fan. Those positions aren't for me, like these slightly worse, slow maneuvering positions, but I don't think it's terrible at all. Is this it? I can't remember if I said 2 more questions, 2 questions ago or 1 question ago. I think this is it, and we'll do more in the next installment. Hope you guys enjoyed the show, learned something. Also let me know about the tempo. I have a feeling I went a little fast in this one. I'm not sure though, if you feel the format would be better if I only tackle whatever, 5 questions in an hour and go into more detail, or how I should be doing that job. Of course, the problem is with going into more detail, it will be hard to answer as many questions. Anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for participating, thanks for asking me questions. See you next time.